What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchet REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video. If you're new to us
and we new to you,
make sure you scroll down,
hit that subscribe button,
and turn on the post notification bell
because we're on the road to 200K.
And we cannot get there without you guys, alright? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
So let's start off with geography. Unfortunately, or fortunately, Europe does not look like this. It looks like this. Europe has over 40 countries, so it's much more than just France, Germany, and Italy. And saying you visited Europe is a very broad term, because this part of Europe is very different from this part of Europe. The biggest country in Europe is Russia, and the smallest country in Europe is the Vatican City, which is basically a giant building with a giant park. Europe can be divided depending on how you look at it. It can be divided politically, geographically, or historically. For example, here, the east from the west, and here, the red from the green from the turquoise, or potato-tomato regions. So let's look at the general way of how Europe can be divided. Firstly on the list is, of course, Western Europe. These are the countries that people want to move in, live in, and be born in. They are economically better off, and they have a lot of work opportunities. These countries include Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, and if you don't count the British Islands as their separate thing, then they also are in the west of Europe. Next up we have...
Yeah, I remember someone speaking about being born in certain locations, certain countries in Europe. It's a benefit.
Yeah.
I remember that, but how often being a woman, how often do you think about giving birth in a certain country or location because of its benefit, though?
I mean, in the United States, I don't think about that.
Yeah, you don't think about that? Okay.
No, I don't.
Nah, you wouldn't, though.
Other than the maternity leave and the free birth.
Yeah, so let's say you was a traveler, right? And then you the one who actually traveled the globe, talking about every other month or every so, you just on the road. But you got pregnant then, would that then be an option? Say, oh, you know what, since I'm on the road so much, I get to choose where I want my child to be born. And then you look into the benefits of it then that way, you know?
No, because then if you are a person who would go to a country like that, do the birth tourism thing, sometimes it'll be hard for you to visit that country again. Really? Because they'll feel like you abused the privilege.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I don't really... Okay. I don't know. That's just not something I thought about.
Just want to put it out there. You never know who had that mindset.
Northern Europe. A lot of these countries are doing great. Or even they're better off in terms of quality of life. Except for Sweden. It's having a rough patch with crimes, apparently. But they're pretty cold. And in the winter, it gets really dark. So not a lot of people want to move there, necessarily. Not only are they cold when it comes to weather, but also when it comes to their friendliness scale. They're usually considered a bit more unfriendly or reserved. These countries are also referred to as Nordic or Scandinavian countries. They have a lot of Viking heritage and they like to fish. They have a lot of fish and water around them. Moving on to Southern Europe. These are the countries that people like to visit on vacation. They're warm, maybe too warm for some people, and by some people I mean me. They have great food and wine, they're pretty friendly, and some of them like to take naps in the middle of the day, which sounds like a dream. But their economy is not doing that great. And if you're wondering why is this section a darker orange, well, I'll get to that in a bit. And now we have Eastern Europe. Well, the problem with Eastern Europe is that nobody wants to be called Eastern Europe. This division is based on the time when the Fire Nation attacked, so a lot of these countries were occupied. Since East of Europe is not the best area to be associated with, countries like to identify themselves with other names. For example, Romania, Croatia likes to be called the Balkans. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are the Baltics, but to be honest, they're quite high up geographically, so maybe they could be considered even Northern Europe. Poland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia likes to be called the Central Europe. And now we're left with countries that are not doing that great, for multiple reasons. And I would say maybe they would rather be called Slavic countries rather than Eastern Europe. You can be both, but one of them sounds a bit more cool than the other one. So if you agree with the concept of Central Europe, then scratch whatever I said before about Europe looking like this. Now Europe looks like this. And I have to say I have nothing against being called Central Europe or the existence of Central Europe. I think it's just funny how nobody wants to be called Eastern European. So then lastly, we have Central Europe. Basically all the German-speaking countries and more. These countries are located in the core economic region of Europe. They have stable governments and a relatively high quality of life. And these countries also love beer, and they like to fight on who drinks the most beer. This is an interesting correlation.
Okay.
Not that it's related to geography, but it's an interesting fact. With all that said, the number one thing you should remember is that Europe is not a country. It is a continent that has a lot of countries. And if you know where the capital of Paris, Berlin, and London is, you're doing a good job, and you should pat yourself on the shoulder. And I definitely don't expect you to know where Malta is, which is right here, and it's very small. I don't even expect people from France to know the capital of Latvia. So if you know a little bit about this place, it's already pretty good. I think one of the most important things is just not to make assumptions. For example, calling Lithuania basically Russia is very disrespectful. Or Ireland is the same as UK. Not a good thing to do. So maybe open a map before opening your mouth. Just a friendly suggestion.
Cool.
And also maybe talk about the difference between Europe and European Union, which I'll cover that in a bit. And now we can move on to history. Well, Europeans have a lot of beef with each other. UK and Ireland, Romania and Hungary, Portugal and Spain, and Russia with basically everybody in the world. And it's all because of history. Europe has a lot of it. There were a lot of agreements, disagreements, and wars over land in the past and also now. Some stuff is serious and some stuff ended up countries just making fun of each other. For example, Austria making fun of Germany, France and the Netherlands making fun of Belgium, or the whole Scandinavian area making fun of the Danes because of their weird sounding language. Because of history, we have cities like this that were weirdly divided between Netherlands and Belgium. They even have houses that are divided into two, so pretty strange. And we also have a city like this in the Baltics, between Estonia and Latvia. Then when you compare Europe to the US, you can see that America is actually bigger in size than Europe, much bigger. Europe is 2/3 of America. But the main difference between these two is that one of them is much more densely populated than the other. The US has 300 million people living in there, and Europe has 700 million. And yet they're smaller in size. Each country here has their own rules, their own languages, their own culture, and so a more accurate comparison would be something like this. Every country is their own little America. And what I mean by that, we can take a look at Germany, for example. The country is divided into 16 states. And this Germany is very different. They also sound very different. When they talk to each other, they might not even understand each other. Plus, we also have Austria right here that also speaks German, but their German is very different from the standard German. But they are right next to each other. So how did this happen? History and culture and a lot of the stuff in between. Then we can also look at UK, which is fully separated from Europe by water. Here the country is divided into 4 regions, which is Scotland, Wales, England, and Northern Ireland. But if you look deeper under the surface, it's also divided into smaller regions. And if you try harder, you can also divide it into just towns, cities, and villages. The UK is an interesting example of how the language and the culture developed a little bit differently, even though they're right next to each other and the country is quite small. Here, people can recognize your status or class based on where you grew up in, which is
accent is always a good thing.
A thing, I suppose. Now, let's talk about the economical state of Europe. Firstly,
okay, hold up. Let's talk about the history. Now, that was I feel like I understand Europeans a little bit better than the average person, but then sometimes, like, when she went through that whole thing, I'm like, that's a lot. Because I am one of those people who I look at European culture to just be starkly different.
Right.
From the U.S., but just understanding that it's complex. Like, just like we look at Africa as we understand different regions, different countries, and in the one country they have so many different languages.
Facts, yeah.
European history, I guess because of how it looks on the map, it's like one thing, but it's not. Just to, and I don't even think we've even like really touched into European history like that.
7 million people.
700 million.
700 million compared to ours.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Crazy.
And it's like you go out there and you try to figure out where everybody at, because a lot of these towns, that you guys have showed us be like, it be looking empty half the time. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken. The towns be looking empty. And then y'all have some very beautiful spots where y'all can see, you can count the houses. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how is that even, where they at? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Where y'all at?
Yeah, y'all gotta let us know, like, what's the must know about your country?
Yeah.
Must know, the must places to go. Other than, Paris and London.
Yeah, everybody know about that.
The real, just how when we're debunking a lot of things, people be like, Americans do this, Americans be like, do that. And we like, we don't do that down south. Mm. We want videos like that to understand y'all a little bit better.
Yeah.
What is the EU, or European Union, as they say? It is an international organization comprising of 27 countries that govern common social, economic, and security policies.
This is what she was talking about.
EU is in Europe, but the whole Europe is not in the EU. Just like a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not a square. What I mean is that not all European countries are a part of this. Some do want to join and some want to leave. for a variety of reasons. From my understanding, this is the EU flag, not the Europe flag, but we do use it as a Europe flag to represent the unity of Europe, which is a little bit confusing, but there's not much I can do. The nice part about the EU is that a lot of European countries share the same currency, which is the euro currency. Not all of them use euros, but many do. These countries like to stick to their currencies, so if you try and buy some groceries with your American dollars, you will most likely be rejected. Unless you're in an airport or some kind of tourist hotspot, then it will not go that well. I mean, would you sell me a sandwich if I say I have 200,000 Animal Crossing bells? Probably not. And if you said yes, I'm not sure about your business practices. 20 EU countries use euros, but in total it's 27 because some countries decided to make it their currency unofficially. But not all EU countries switched to euro, and some of them still stayed with their old currency. So if you're traveling to those countries, check ahead what kind of money do they use. And ignore UK, because I forgot they decided to leave or they already left. So they're just doing their own thing. But many countries over the years did switch to using euros, which is very convenient when you travel. But as a Latvian, I remember having lats and being very sad that we're going to switch to euros now. The only reason I didn't want it to happen because I really liked this coin and, you know, nostalgia reasons and cultural reasons. But now I don't have to exchange my currency or try and always calculate in my mind how much is this in lats or how much is this in euros. So, overall, a good
It's a win. It's a win.
I think.
Yeah.
You can let me know if you have an opinion about this. Now, the last thing on our list is culture. America is not Europe, and Europe is not America. We run things differently around here. Like, for example, it's very rare to find a building that has central AC. Most of us just have a big heat wave in the middle of the summer and we suffer for 2 weeks and then it's all good. But the normal AC is a bit more common in Southern Europe, but not everywhere. In some ways, we're not that different from you. And maybe we're not even better than you, but we certainly think we are. I mean, we also have McDonald's, and we do like our convenient cars, but we're not that obsessed with it. And our cities don't look like the medieval times. I mean, some do, but we certainly stopped throwing trash out of the windows and burning witches. As mentioned before, Europe has a lot of countries, so there's a lot of different cultures, foods, traditions, and preferences. And so I gathered some cultural things to generally know about Europe. The first thing on my list is that you're probably not Italian. If the only thing that makes you Italian is that you took an ancestry test that told you that your blood is 57% Italian, you're probably not Italian. It doesn't count if you have Italian ancestors from the 1800s that settled to America. If you didn't grow up in Italy, you don't have any Italian relatives, like grandparents, parents, or aunts and uncles, and you don't know how to speak Italian. I'm sorry to say this, but you're not Italian. Being able to pronounce mozzarella correctly, or having a family recipe of spaghetti and meatballs doesn't give you an Italian passport. Because spaghetti and meatballs is an Italian-American dish. They don't really eat that.
She going off.
Don't get me wrong, it's a nice fact and it's fun.
So basically...
Wait, I didn't know that y'all... Well, not y'all,
I asked
as in
this
all,
question
but
before too.
What you got?
I wanted to know that our white Americans who have ancestral backgrounds in different places of Europe, did they feel the same way that we feel with Africans? But according to her, it's like, baby, when y'all ask King George to surrender the colonies, that's when the end of that ancestral background. But I guess what
we're gonna have to do a video or find a video that you guys can send us at least or something with asking how do white Americans feel about going back, or like what's their relationship like?
The connection, because Africans, they welcome us to come connect with our roots, but I guess it's because we didn't select
to come here. Exactly. They kind of sort of do the history and everything else that went on kind of sort of happened.
Yeah, because basically she said, baby, the moment y'all asked King George to surrender the colonies and went through all the war, that's when y'all ancestral background ended.
We got questions.
That's what it seemed like she said.
We got questions.
Don't get me wrong, it's a nice fact and it's fun to know where your ancestors came from, but it doesn't mean that you have the right to claim to be this nationality.
Whoa.
Then a lot of people here are bilingual. But
well, it's not really...
Let's take it back.
Asking to be a part of the nationality.
I bring it back a few just to get a clear understanding why she said what she said.
Yeah, because ethnicity is different from nationality. Ethnicity, race, nationality, that's different things. I don't think that white Americans are claiming to be Italian. They're proud of their roots.
I've never necessarily heard someone claim it though. Not Italian, at least not a white American say I'm Italian.
They'll just say they have that kind of background. You know, I mean,
or the most they say, I know who my grandma is, I know my grandpa is, I know my great great grandpa, I know my great great grandpa is. Like it's that more of a conversation than saying, what about you and the Europeans? You know what I'm saying? That type of conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I understand where y'all coming from.
Yeah.
And I also understand, y'all don't really dabble in the race politics like we do here. And that's okay, but that's just like us. We're not claiming to be African. We know that we're American, but we also know that that's where our roots are. You can't just shut somebody off. And again, I don't care, honestly. It ain't about me. So, but yeah, I'm gonna just leave that alone.
I think this is for another video.
Yeah, that's for another video.
We'll have to do another video for y'all to get the gist.
Don't get me wrong, it's a nice fact and it's fun to know where your ancestors came from, but it doesn't mean that you have the right to claim to be this nationality. Then, a lot of people here are bilingual, but that does not mean that they know English. Oftentimes in most schools you learn 3 languages. Your language, the neighboring country's language, and most likely English,
cool.
or whatever else you want to learn. But that does not mean everybody speaks English or want to speak English. So it's always nice to learn a little bit before you come here. Even just knowing how to say please and thank you is already something. Then thirdly, in Eastern Europe and in Northern Europe, people don't really like small talking with strangers. Plus, walking and smiling alone is considered weird. They probably will think you're crazy. People here are reserved and cold because it probably is cold most of the time, and they don't like to waste their energy on things that don't really matter. So if you see them smiling, it's most likely sincere. Then next we have Sundays.
That's another day.
Some countries consider Sunday as a holy day, so a lot of shops and grocery stores are closed. Or they might not be open at their usual schedule. Germany and Poland are quite serious about it, so you'll just have to deal with it. Food is also a big part of our culture, so here is a subsection about food in restaurants. Well, first of all, let's talk about additives. The EU is cautious of what we put in our food. As you can see, the fries from McDonald's, here is a list of ingredients in the UK, which I think by that time was part of the EU. And here is a list of ingredients that they use in the US.
Yeah.
Way more things that I don't know what they are. Don't get me wrong, we have many ingredients that start with the letter E and end with a number, but we are very selective of which ones we want to bring into our club. What I've learned from food theory is that EU takes the approach of guilty until proven innocent. Meaning, if the additives are proven to not be harmful, then they're accepted into our food chain. Each country has their own specialties and traditional foods, so there's lots to experience and to try. So we'll probably find it a little bit weird if you stick to McDonald's and Starbucks and Dunkin' that you can find back at home at a 10-minute drive away from your house. But I do have to say, if you're going to these places to find something new, something that is not sold in your country, then I think it's fine. I've done it. For some reason people are judging me for this, but I want to know what a macaron tastes like at a French McDonald's. I'm curious, is it good? Is it bad? Should I buy it again? Speaking of restaurants, prepare yourself that the service will be just okay. They will not go above and beyond to please your every need. They might not be fast, and they might not be friendly. They are humans that have emotions and down days, and are not full of energy all the time. And they will leave you alone to eat your food and might not check up on you at all. I've been to plenty of cafes and restaurants where they did have very friendly and good service, but not all of them will be like this. And so, just be mentally prepared that they will not take your dish back and give you a refund if you just don't like it. You'll just have to pick something better next time. Then also we have tipping. In most countries, waiters receive a fair minimum wage. But it's still minimum wage, so it's quite low. So we do like tipping, but just 5 to 10%. A more modest tip. Or you just round off the bill that the number looks nice. But the tipping etiquette can be different for each country. For example, in Germany, you tip when you pay. But in France, you leave a tip on the table when you leave, and already paid. What I hear a lot of people from America living or visiting Europe say that we don't have good Mexican food. And it's true, because Mexico is right here, right next to the United States.
Never heard about that.
And Mexico is pretty far away.
Wow.
Why y'all going to Europe looking for Mexican food? Unless you are a Mexican.
I mean,
or a Mexican American.
Or you just gotta have it, and you can't go a day without it. That's the only reason you would want it.
Nah, that's like when we moved from Louisiana, it was like we couldn't find certain things.
Yeah, you know.
I'm not going nowhere around here in Texas looking for no gumbo because I know they're not gonna make it right. Why y'all going there looking for Mexican food?
That's funny. Wow. It's interesting though, man. I was gonna say this comment for last, but just to have an understanding of y'all's culture. For instance, like the waiter, like some people go there and automatically think that's just rude and just mean. The person don't come check on me, none of that.
Right.
But for us, like knowing your culture now, it's a little hilarious too because it's like
funny.
It's just funny. It's like I'm expecting it now. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like I'm not gonna feel no type of way if someone don't come back to my table unless I call and say I'm ready to leave.
Right.
And get my receipt and stuff. So
I like our waiters. I love the hospitality.
Big difference.
We're from the South, so we're big on manners. So we say please and thank you.
We do that.
We hold the door open for the elderly and the children. So we're big on manners. So I love our hospitality.
Yeah.
So that would be different,
but
I would understand not to expect American hospitality in Europe, apparently.
From Europe. So not a lot of people that know how to cook good Mexican food come to Europe to open Mexican restaurants. And that makes sense because we have a whole ocean between us. Don't get me wrong, I would love to go to a Mexican restaurant, but I don't even know how good Mexican food tastes like because I've never been to Mexico. Because again, it's pretty far away. So maybe you should implement geography classes into your school education. Just saying. When visiting restaurants, cafes, and other public places, it is important for us to be spatially aware and not be too loud. Americans have a reputation here in Europe that they're loud and annoying. Maybe they're not necessarily American, they might be Canadian, but just be aware of the situation, if it's quiet or not, and how loud you're speaking. Especially in countries like Germany. They take it really seriously, and they will point it out that you're being too loud. Now, all that being said, Europe is not a perfect place. We have a lot of issues of our own. Europe is considered to be pretty safe from the rest of the world, but we still have crimes here. And as I said before, Sweden, I'm looking at you.
Whoa.
What's happening? Especially in big cities, we have a lot of scams and pickpocketers. And Paris would be the first city that comes to mind that has this issue. Then Europe also has racial discrimination, some countries more than others. But an interesting statement that I've heard is that we dislike or have prejudices against people from other countries rather than skin color, which I think the description also fits. So we also do have our problems. So here are some of my final thoughts. Well, if you're an American living in America, you probably don't really care about the intricacies of being European and living in Europe. And that's okay. We don't know everything about you, and I don't think you should know everything about us. We have our own stuff to deal with, but I do think we can learn from each other. For example, having free public bathrooms, or universal healthcare. If you're planning on visiting European countries, I would suggest just looking up some stuff about what to do or what not to do, and some little language bits and pieces of saying please and thank you. Or just in general, be more aware of your surroundings. Not just for Americans, but for anyone out there in the world. So if you like this video and you like to see more of videos like this, consider maybe buying me a little tea or coffee at Coffee. And I want...
That was a cool video.
Yeah, hey, make sure you guys go check her channel out. Show her some love. Yeah, she just put on for the whole Europe.
Yeah. That was cool. We comment on a lot of things. So
we did.
It's always nice to learn. And it's okay not to know everything. The point is that you are a student at life. I'm going to have to give me some merch that say that. Be a student at life. Of life, not at, but...
Yeah, we're going to fix it. We're going to move the words around. Get
yeah. Well, this is a cool video. Y'all know we love to learn about the world. So if you want us to learn more about your country, let us know what we should know down in the comment section below. We also have a reaction request form if you would like to send in some videos. Yep. And we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Be sure to subscribe. We'll see you soon.
Peace.